Boom, XRP, $25,000 overnight. This is a new update. Now, as many of you know, the very first video I did was just for me to send to my friend Max over here because he had a channel. I didn't have a channel. I didn't know that the video being posted on just my family channel, where it's right next to my Thanksgivings and Christmas just for family, that video went viral and monetized the channel in 2 days. I had thousands of people join. Very exciting, very humbling. And I've enjoyed that ever since today. And I appreciate all of you that's seen those videos or saw that first video. It's been amazing. And so we do have an update for you, and it is exciting. We're going to take a look at BTCC, and we're going to take a look at the Decent Wallet, and then we'll be right back. How would you like to earn an extra $100, $200, or even $500 a day? Even more than that. I have many friends that are earning money every single day trading futures on BTCC. It's a simple process. And even if you don't want to learn how to trade, you can follow a trader on the site and let him do the trading for you, and you will earn according to his trades. Sometimes I follow All the Money by Q, and his trades earn me money. He has a 93% success rate, and he earns a great percentage. So even if you don't know how to trade, there's a way to make money. But I suggest learn how to trade, earn you some extra money on BTCC. It's easy. You do not have to KYC, and you don't have to use a virtual private network. This is a wonderful site. They've been around since 2011. Give them a shot. Also, when you earn that extra money, you can store that in your Decent Wallet. The Decent Wallet was not affected by the recent XRPL debacle, where the back door of many wallets was opened and there was a breach. So Decent Wallet was not affected by that. Decent Wallet is as safe as you keep your seed phrase. It's a wonderful product, and you can get the discount by using the link. It is the only way you can get an affiliate discount, is to use an affiliate link. So that link that's popping up at the right side of the screen is the one that you use. You will also get free shipping. Pick you up a Decent Wallet today. Secure your assets. If you don't have them stored in a wallet and sitting on an exchange, then you're at risk. So pick you one up today. Max, it's truly phenomenal what XRP can go through and how there can be an instantaneous huge jump in price to 25,000. You know, back when I did this originally, some people scoffed at it. One of them, Zach Rector, kind of made a face. He highlighted the video at the time. It was his biggest video also. It had so many hits, but he kind of made a face about it being, up to 25,000, when I mentioned that even some of the heads of XRP or Ripple, I can't remember who or what at the time, had mentioned it, and had actually said it, and he gave kind of a look of doubting it. But then that video got more and more spread, and that little piece of news really made that video, I think, go so hairy viral. But now we got an update with more information of how this same thing can be. Show us what you got.
Absolutely. So what Will was talking about right there is, Zach Record did a reaction video basically to that and so on. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like he was being an opportunist. That's no knock on Zach. Hey, I can't blame him.
We love Zach.
Yeah. I mean, he does a lot for the XRP army and so on. So that is no knock on him. But, hey,
no, if that
doesn't take advantage of opportunity.
I didn't mean that to be like slighting him some. That was just the course of events that happened, which he made the video go even bigger.
Right. And also, to your credit, he did give you credit that this is the first time, I think it was since 2017, that somebody had a perspective that was in line with the one and only, the man, the myth, the legend, David Schwartz. So at the end of the day, I do want to say kudos to you on that. And I think a lot of people recognize that. And of course, that's why they shared it, other than just, hey, look at this crazy guy with the thumbnail, right? So whatever the case be, let's get into this. This is a legitimate update. You got to see it for yourself. And let's pull this up. We're going to actually cite Smoke here because at the end of the day, he's got some really, really good stuff. So check this out for yourself. And I love the terminology here. So he says, all signs indicate that it will happen slowly, then all at once. What at all at once? $25,000 boom XRP overnight? Could very well be, but I do have this on the other tab. And basically, he points out, as in Smoke, that this is all documented. And look at this. Global Tokenized Real Estate Market 2024 edition. The pace from millions to billions to trillions. I actually will read the top part of this because otherwise it just doesn't flow as well. It says multiple billion-dollar asset managers are already trialing the technology, including Steel Wave. And it says Black Salmon Group, White Rocks, and Nolan Reynolds International, and some examples. Many more asset allocators, RIAs, and other representatives of large real estate portfolios are also actively engaged in implementations. Even recently, German real estate group Bauwens invested in Fundament Group, suggesting they might tokenize their over $6 billion portfolio of real estate, which was not included in this report's pipeline, assuming that it can be proven to the firm that putting existing assets on blockchain is worth it. Now here's the highlight. For the purposes of valuation, collateralization, back office savings, and user experience, we may see large firms like Bauwens commit to such an act, or more likely begin using tokenization for all new financial offerings while letting the legacy infrastructure run its course. This is the scenario thousands of real estate developers and asset managers are now faced with today. Similar to non-real estate fund asset classes, tokenization is all too inevitable. Now, the part about trillions on this paragraph below says trillions of capital lies dormant under the control of banks and private lenders with no alternatives. Consumers will demand reduced rates. True. I mean, I have a friend trying to buy a house as we speak, and he's so frustrated with it. Improved user experiences and expanded financial services for their homes. Look at this. Once tokenization is accepted, standard for real estate administration, the sky becomes the proverbial limit. And even there, we will see air rights be tokenized too. The proverbial gold rush to tokenize hundreds of trillions of real estate will no longer be a myth, and it won't be long after the asset class sees adoption from the largest incumbents. All signs suggest it will happen slowly and then all at once. Now, you may be wondering, how do we tie things like your Ripple XRP to something like that? Now, I'm with you. As we pull this up, I want to give a shout out to Subjective Views. I think it's with statements like this, because according to Subjective Views, the new crypto czar, right? White House AI crypto czar David Sachs said shortly after Bitcoin's creation, another digital asset emerged. Like BTC, infinite copies of XRP cannot be made. Its total supply is capped at 100 billion. And the protocol prevents any addition creation beyond that. XRP is fast, cheaper, and more scalable than Bitcoin. Like he says, toodles. We'll play this for a minute. Jump back to Will. Hear his perspective, once again, just in case you haven't seen his other videos, of how a $25,000 XRP overnight might actually blow your mind away with the use case of how it could actually happen. Let's play this, and then we'll come right back.
The thing that like all these like critics don't seem to understand is the technology. That's the common denominator, whether it's like Howard Marks or Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger or whoever, they're all like great investors or whatever, but they're not technologists.
It's a blind spot.
It's a blind spot. And the thing they don't understand about the technology is that Bitcoin is the first digital asset to ever be created that you can't create infinite copies of, right? So think about like a song or a photo or a video or whatever, anything that's digital. You've always been able to make an infinite number of copies. Isn't that what the word digital means? Is that it's infinitely copyable. So how do you have digital money that can't just be infinitely copied? Obviously, that would destroy the value. And that was the genius of Bitcoin is that every transaction is written into this ledger. The blockchain is decentralized, and nobody over the last decade or so has figured out how to counterfeit Bitcoin, how to make a duplicate, how to double spend Bitcoin.
I thought it was an interesting perspective, to say the least. Smoke,
It is. Yeah.
David Sachs. I mean, when you really think about it, it's like, you know what? Real world asset tokenization. And on top of that, creating, like our last video, atomic settlement. You already have access to the big institutions. But again, Smoke's research, it will start out slow. In my opinion, it is already going slow right now. This is where a lot of people say price don't move much. It's happening slow. And then it happens, and it happens overnight. Regulations, I think, are the key enabler of that. And of course, the big mass adoption, but it has to be, in my opinion, it could be overnight. You got a lot to share here. I know you do. Your thoughts.
All right. So first, let's deal with the market cap bros. Okay. For those of you that are going to tell me about market cap and how it's impossible because there's not that much money, well, there doesn't need to be that much money. Now, I'm going to put the reference to a video that I did on market cap that does a full explanation of it right up here. Watch that. Don't make a comment about market cap unless you know what you're talking about. There is not a giant pile of money anywhere that is the market cap sum. That is, it doesn't work that way. There doesn't need to be that much money. It's an estimated value. So look at that video. I put the link above my head there, or it'd be in the corner over here. Watch that so that you can get an understanding of that, you know, and I don't mean that in a demeaning way, but when we don't know something, it's good to learn so that we can know something, right? And so Zach Rector also put together a great video about market cap. He also can be referenced to look at information on that. So, all right. So in my first video, I talked about, so Brad Garlinghouse has this brand new concept, this new thing, XRP with Ripple, and he needs to go around the world and sell this thing to people, right? Sell it to banks and institutions. Hey, we got this great way to transfer money. So some of the objectives and some of the concerns that are going to come up are, well, hey, you came to me, and let's say I'm your first customer. Okay, well, if so nobody else has this, you know, so I don't necessarily want to do it. Well, I'm going to build this up, Brad might say, and we're going to have where it's going to be all over, because you're going to be able to do these transactions for pennies instead of dollars and seconds instead of days. And they say, okay, well, put me on the list. Okay, so how much money? They're going to have to evaluate this company. How much do you send now? How much do you receive? Why do they need that? Because they're going to need a daily figure for that particular company on how much XRP is needed. Now he goes to hundreds of banks and institutions. Word gets out. People are jumping all over Brad, and he's got to figure out a pre-allocation for XRP because there is a limited supply. You say it's 100 billion. It's still limited. I mean, they're going to be moving more than, you know, at the time XRP was a few cents. You know, that's not going to move a ton of money, is it? If XRP was $1 each, they could move $100 billion, right? Well, it's only pennies at the time. So they're going to need to pre-allocate because they're going to fish out of a different pool, not out of a pool of 100 billion. They're going to fish out of a pool of, at the time, approximately 50 billion, because the rest was in escrow. So think of it now. How many things have are bidding for that same amount of coin? So right now there's about 39 billion in escrow. Most of it's locked up. And you have, I believe it's around, let's say 29 billion available in the marketplace on exchanges. I believe it's much less than that, but let's use that as a figure. And you can look at our older videos to get the exact figures, or closer to exact figures. Okay, so for the sake of talking about, let's say there's 29 billion. Well, what's going to happen when ETFs come out? Those have to have the underlying asset. Well, that pool just got smaller by millions and millions of XRP. What about all the people buying wallets and people that are now buying and holding XRP? That wasn't the intent originally. That's smaller and smaller. What about the tokenization of real world assets? When XRP, if you remember, when XRP came out and was tokenizing, they would transfer XRP over to XRPL. Do you remember that? You remember they said, now it can never come back once it leaves. So there were people tokenizing things, removing XRP over to the XRPL network, tokenizing things. Now that might not be going on as much now because I believe they're going to probably tokenize on XRPL with other tokens they could create. But XRP is still available to tokenize real world assets, to tokenize properties, and to tokenize treasury bills. So everything that takes from the pool shrinks the available supply for banks and institutions. Now goes back to the pre-allocation. They're going to have to figure what the price of XRP is and how much over 1,700 banks and institutions are going to need divided by a daily basis. Now, banks are very competitive with other banks. You don't find much of an interest rate shift, do you? You don't have one bank doing 7% and another bank saying, hey, we're going to do 5%. They find other ways and services to try to compete because they're having to pay. It's all fixed, right? The Fed is the one dictating the rate. They borrow at that rate, and then they make the rate after they add to it. Then they make an additional. So the competition can be in fees, but the SWIFT system was pretty expensive. And the other systems used to do transfers cross-border were very expensive. So suddenly there's this thing called XRP, which literally for pennies will move millions and millions of dollars for pennies. Also, you don't have Vostro and Nostro accounts. What are those? Accounts stacked full of every currency that there is. Why? Because with international trade, it's not all dollars. Sometimes it's going to be, the other currencies of the world. It's going to have to be converted from the dollar to another currency. And then the old system's going to get, well, there's a fee for that. You just had to pay a big old fee, in the FX market in order to convert your money. Well, what does XRP do that helps that situation? Well, it just shows up as XRP and they can sell the XRP instantly. Why can they sell it instantly? What gives it so much liquidity? Well, there's another bank and institution trying to get a hold of some to send some money. That's called a purchase. But they don't care about what the cost is. They just care about, I need whatever it takes to move $1 billion. So they don't care if it's $1 or $10 each. They just say, I'm moving $1 billion. And when all these banks and institutions start saving tons of money, they're all going to get into preservation of their customers instead of all their customers running to the first ones using XRP. Thus, we have what we are calling, there's not an actual switch, but we're calling that the flip of a switch because competition is going to be massive. It's going to be like a wildfire. It's just going to be just massively sweep through, probably when regulations get done. And is it going to be overnight? We say overnight, but it might be in the course of several months that it's just sweeping over the world. And all of these companies are saving money. They're also releasing the funds of their Vostro, Nostro accounts. That becomes, if your buddy bank had billions and billions of dollars just set to try to settle other funds, and that's all its job is, well, they have to make money off of that money. Well, it's not loaned out, so how do they make money? They charge big giant fees to convert dollars into those currencies. Well, suddenly that's not a need. Suddenly XRP's out there doing it for pennies. So they got all this money that they can employ doing something else. They can now, they can loan it. They can loan it. They can do other things with it and generate more money with the use of that money. So when your neighbor bank was able to get rid of their Vostro Nostro accounts, and then suddenly they got all this capital to do something with, boy, don't you want to be next. So there's the flip of the switch, and there's where the value is going to come in because of the purchase and move of all of the money that's going to get pushed in, again, in a supply that's been getting smaller and smaller. 17 ETFs, if they're all approved, would eat up a whole lot of that. So that's where we get $25,000 flip of the switch. This thing was set up a certain way, and it's grown, and it's a lot different now than it was then, which has made it even more and more of a supply crunch on XRP. And not to mention, all of those tons of fees are going to be just burning up XRP. So all of these factors lead to the idea of the flip of the switch and an enormous amount of value added to XRP, driving the price sky high. Will it actually be 25,000 overnight? I don't think so. I think it'll be really high in just a few days once this starts taking place. And then it's going to grow consistently for a great period of time. So we say 25,000 overnight because in perspective to other stocks, bonds, and cryptos, a few months is a night, in the gathering of the ideas of things. And this brand new technology sweeping the world, XRP's ruling in it. They're all over the place. Video after video in the last week, we went over different attributes of how XRP is sewn into the very code of some of these things that in the code to do what? In order to create a purchase and a settlement, to buy and sell XRP built into the systems of transferring money around the world. Hang on to your XRP. You own a piece of the digital future. That piece, every XRP that you have, is a bigger and bigger piece of the whole digital future. It's going to be worth more and more and more as time goes on. So Max, I'm excited about what I see Smoke covering here. I mean, more reasons of why this thing's going to take over and be just a massive display. It's going to be in the history books of how many millionaires and billionaires were made just from one asset that is the first time that the people got in first before the institutions.
Wow. Well said, brother. I have nothing to add to that whatsoever. I just think that you have awesome perspective. This is an update in regard to a few ones that he's put out, and so glad to go over this. So glad to share Smoke's research, and so glad to share some other findings that we have had. Will, you get the honor of providing the code word for people that listen to the entire outline.
Man, the code word is 25,000.
And we'll know that you listen to the entire outline. On behalf of myself and Will Fix, thanks for tuning in. And even for all the people that might not like this video, thank you as well. We'll see you on the next one.